$8 billion in customer funds. Supposedly sitting safely in a cryptocurrency exchange. Actually being quietly funneled into a hedge fund run by the same man's girlfriend. This is how one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world collapsed in about 10 days, and how almost nobody outside the company noticed the hole until it was already too late to fill. FTX launched in 2019, founded by a young trader named Sam Bankman-Fried, known publicly as SBF, disheveled hair, cargo shorts, a carefully cultivated image as the boy genius of crypto who'd give away his fortune to charity. Within 3 years, FTX had become one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges on the planet, valued at roughly $32 billion, backed by some of the most respected venture capital firms in the world. Bankman-Fried testified before Congress. He met with regulators about how crypto should be regulated. He was, by 2022, arguably the most trusted man in an industry not exactly known for trustworthiness. Part of that trust came from positioning himself as crypto's responsible adult, publicly advocating for the exact kind of regulation many in the industry resisted, donating heavily to political campaigns on both sides, and cultivating relationships with regulators who might otherwise have scrutinized his exchange more aggressively. Being the industry's loudest voice for oversight turned out to be a remarkably effective way to avoid receiving much of it himself. Alongside FTX, Bankman-Fried ran a separate company called Alameda Research, a cryptocurrency trading firm, led by Caroline Ellison, that was supposed to operate independently from the exchange. In theory, FTX was a neutral marketplace, and Alameda was just one trader among many using it. In practice, the two companies shared far more than they should have. And that overlap was where the actual fraud lived. On paper, keeping a trading firm and an exchange separate is exactly the kind of safeguard that's supposed to prevent conflicts of interest, the same logic that keeps a casino from also being one of the players at its own tables. FTX and Alameda shared the same founder, many of the same senior staff, and, as investigators would later show, the same money, long before anyone outside the companies understood how thin that supposed separation actually was. Here's the part that doesn't add up. Prosecutors would later show that FTX had quietly built a software feature allowing Alameda Research to maintain a negative balance on the exchange, essentially letting Alameda withdraw far more money than it had actually deposited, without triggering the automatic checks that would stop any other user from doing the same thing. Customer deposits made to FTX, money ordinary users believed was sitting safely in their own accounts, ready to withdraw whenever they wanted, were being funneled directly into Alameda Research, and from there into risky trading bets, venture investments, real estate, and political donations. Someone was supposed to catch this. Nobody outside a very small circle even knew to look. For years, this worked because crypto markets, broadly, kept rising, and few customers tried to withdraw large sums all at once. The fraud only needed to survive as long as nobody asked to see the actual books. In November 2022, a leaked balance sheet revealed that a huge portion of Alameda's assets consisted of FTT, a token that FTX itself had created out of thin air, with a price largely set by FTX's own trading activity. Using your own invented token as collateral for billions in loans is a bit like using your own IOU as proof you're good for the money. When a competing exchange, Binance, announced it would sell off its own holdings of FTT, panic spread almost instantly. Customers rushed to withdraw funds from FTX, a classic bank run, except FTX, unlike a bank, had no reserve requirement forcing it to actually keep customer money on hand. Within about 72 hours, FTX couldn't process withdrawals. The exchange that had marketed itself as one of the safest, most professionally run platforms in crypto simply ran out of money to give people back. Once bankruptcy investigators gained access to FTX's real books, the picture that emerged was less a story of one clever hidden trick and more a picture of chaos. No real accounting department in the traditional sense, corporate expenses approved through casual messaging apps rather than any formal process, and roughly 500 separate ventures the group had invested customer-linked funds into, ranging from other crypto startups to real estate to a stake in a major bank. Investigators also flagged tens of millions of dollars in political donations, made across the U.S. political spectrum, using funds that traced back to the same commingled pool. This wasn't a single missing transaction. It was an entire company that had never built the basic financial infrastructure serious institutions are expected to have before they're trusted with other people's money. On November 11, 2022, FTX filed for bankruptcy. The company's new CEO, brought in specifically to manage the collapse, a lawyer who had previously overseen the Enron bankruptcy, described what he found inside FTX's finances as, in his words, unprecedented. Basic financial controls that any serious company would have, absent. Corporate funds and customer funds, mixed together with what he called a complete failure of oversight. Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas in December 2022 and extradited to the United States to face multiple federal charges, including wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. FTX had marketed itself specifically on trust and safety, in an industry still fighting to shake off its association with scams and volatility. Bankman-Fried's public image, the modest apartment, the beat-up Corolla he was photographed driving despite personal wealth estimated in the billions, the pledge to give away his fortune, did real work reassuring exactly the kind of institutional investors and regulators who might otherwise have pushed harder for independent verification of how customer funds were actually being held. That gap between image and internal reality turned out to be the most damaging detail of all, not because it was hidden particularly well once anyone looked, but because almost nobody with real influence over FTX's reputation had a strong incentive to look for it while the price kept going up. Approximately $8 billion in customer funds were unaccounted for at the time of collapse. Caroline Ellison, along with several other FTX and Alameda executives, pleaded guilty and testified against Bankman-Fried in exchange for cooperation agreements. In November 2023, a jury convicted Bankman-Fried on all 7 counts he faced, including wire fraud and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Remarkably, much of the customer money was eventually recovered as crypto asset values rose again during the bankruptcy proceedings, but that recovery had far more to do with market timing than with anything FTX itself did right. Several other FTX and Alameda executives beyond Ellison, including co-founder Gary Wang and engineering director Nishat Singh, also pleaded guilty and cooperated with prosecutors, receiving reduced sentences in exchange for testimony that helped establish exactly how the backdoor credit line and commingled funds had worked in practice. The case also renewed a long-running debate in the cryptocurrency industry about whether exchanges should be legally required to segregate customer funds the way regulated banks and brokerages already are, a requirement that, had it existed and been enforced for FTX, would likely have made the entire scheme structurally impossible to run in the first place. There's a specific lesson here about self-regulation in a young industry. Cryptocurrency exchanges, unlike traditional banks and brokerages, weren't required by law to segregate customer funds from company funds the way regulated financial institutions have been for decades, a rule that exists precisely because history has shown, repeatedly, that voluntary separation doesn't hold up under pressure. FTX wasn't the first company to demonstrate why that rule exists. It was simply one of the largest and most public examples of what happens when an entire industry operates without it. FTX didn't fail because crypto is inherently a scam, and it didn't fail through some brilliantly hidden accounting trick nobody could have caught. It failed because 2 supposedly separate companies quietly shared a backdoor, and customer deposits flowed straight through it, unnoticed, for years, mostly because nobody with the power to check ever seriously asked to look. The numbers always tell the story eventually. The question, as always, is who's still listening by then. FTX had venture capital backing from some of the most sophisticated investors on the planet, and still missed $8 billion. Subscribe if you want to understand exactly how that happens.